Dave, very powerful words from someone who has had to live with the tragic loss of a son because of corruption and incompetence. Killing Soleimani was a long time coming. Many of us wanted to go after him over the years, and the Obama administration denied those opportunities. President Trump's actions sent a message to all the thug dictators around the world: the United States will no longer take the BS from them any longer. God bless America and our men and women in uniform. I also sent your note to the whistleblowers, and here was the response, Charles. Dave, Soleimani was a very bad person. He deserved what he got. I'm interested to see the finance records linking him. That evidence should be made public, especially now, by the State Department and Department of Defense. Sometimes, though, they have to bury it. I'll help you work towards whatever it leads, no matter what. Accountability and transparency has to be the way moving forward. Right after we exchange those emails, Charles, I want your reaction. Susan Rice, former National Security Advisor to President Obama, on the Soleimani killing, quote, "The Obama administration was not presented with an opportunity by our intelligence community or by the United States military to strike Qasem Soleimani," end quote.
It's amazing how Trump was able to immediately get things done. Whereas the Obama administration took 7 years before we even brought two of those terrorists to justice.
I sent Susan Rice's tweet and her response. I sent that to this individual who's very well known, who's very high level within military intelligence, and here was his response. Dave, this is about Susan Rice and her response. Dave, they have no soul. Multiple opportunities were present over the 8 years. But then, Charles, there's something else. This came out in Red State. Obama did more than just look the other way on Soleimani. The Iran deal gave him amnesty. It's something most people don't know about. But if you fish back, July 15th, 2015, the Iran deal was implemented July 14th, 2015. Obama's Iran deal has just granted an amnesty to the world's leading terrorist mastermind. This is now July 2015, almost 3 years after Benghazi. Here's what was reported by Con Coughlin of The Telegraph. Qasem Soleimani, the head of the elite Quds Force and Iran's Revolutionary Guard, fully deserves his reputation as one of the world's leading terrorist masterminds. So you can imagine my amazement when leafing through the more obscure annexes of President Barack Obama's, quote, historic, end quote, deal with Iran. Specifically, page 86 of the annex of the Iran deal, I found that Mr. Soleimani, as the White House no doubt now refers him to him, has been granted an amnesty and taken off the list of proscribed Iranians together with a number of senior members of the Revolutionary Guard.
If we didn't have the opportunity to kill him, why was he taken off the kill list? And I'd only have to speculate upon the reasons for doing this, but I've always wondered, okay, President Obama, as everyone knows, was raised in a Muslim family. Okay, so by definition, you're a Muslim. And if you renounce your Muslim faith and then go to a Muslim country such as Saudi Arabia, you know what the penalty is.
Mm-hmm. Death.
Death. Okay. Mm-hmm. And he went to Muslim countries and they never did anything to him. So possibly, I don't know, but possibly the affinity of one Muslim to another may have been part of the reason why he didn't want certain Muslims killed.
And Charles, when you boil Benghazi all down, and you can tell me if I'm wrong on this, but when I speak to General Vallely and formerly Admiral Lyons before his passing, and General McInerney and many others within the military, what they tell me is Benghazi was a weapons-running operation run by the Obama administration to funnel arms into al-Qaeda in Libya to take out Gaddafi and then reverse those flow of arms into Turkey, ultimately Syria, to weaponize ISIS. The ambassador, who was the point man on the ground on that, Stevens, apparently got cold feet.
Right, and loose lips.
And what happened, Charles? It appears that Obama, Hillary Clinton, and other deep state players decided they had to tie up loose ends. And that's why Benghazi happened, and that's why the stand-down order occurred, and that's why the military people that were in the field of operations that day were told not to follow the terrorists. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, I don't want to speculate on that. That wouldn't be, within my purview. But obviously, something very nefarious was happening in Benghazi. And I think it was Blackbeard the pirate that said, "Dead men don't talk."
Yeah.
And for one reason or another, they knew there was going to be this attack ahead of time. One of the whistleblowers who did the intelligence that actually knew the names of some of the people that were involved in the attack ahead of time said everyone in Washington had been notified by him that there was going to be an attack. But what did they do? They withdrew. The military, there were Marines there. Every time we requested more security there, what did they do? Withdrew until there were just a handful of people protecting our ambassador in one of the most dangerous places in the entire world. It was like hanging a piece of red meat in front of a carnivore.
Charles, when they brought Ty home,
yes,
you were present, of course, and President Obama, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta were also in attendance, correct?
Yes, that's right.
You spoke to all three of them separately, correct?
Yeah, what happened is at Andrews Air Force Base, there was a large room. Each one of the four families were assigned to a particular area. And in this kind of pod, there were couches and things like that. And then we didn't know anyone was going to be there. And then all of a sudden, people like Joe Biden, all these people that we'd seen on TV came up and started talking to each one of the individual family members. And yes, I did talk with those people.
So let's go down the list.
Okay.
Barack Obama, President of the United States.
Okay.
Tell me what happened.
Okay. With him, he came up, and I told him, I said, basically, thank you for your service. I wanted to, make him feel at ease. And I could tell that he was not at peace. And so what I told him was, I says, I'm at peace with what happened because I realize that God is in charge of everything. Okay. Not one sparrow falls to the ground outside of God's will. Okay. I didn't quote that, but I just said I'm at peace with what happened. And I could tell he wasn't at peace. And in a very whining, insincere voice, it was like, I'm sorry. That was it. And he was facing towards me, but he could not make eye contact with me, looking over my shoulder. So, I knew he was not sorry. And, obviously he could have done things that would have saved my son's life with umpteen hours, but chose not to do that for whatever reason. And I'm sure in his mind, he had a good reason for not doing that, for not rescuing those Americans. So that was basically what happened with the president.
Hillary Clinton?
Okay, Hillary Clinton. She came around, and instead of basically trying to make me feel better, her statement was, and I could tell that this was almost a memorized script that she had, was, we're going to have the person arrested that made the video that was responsible for the death of your son. Okay, now, as an administrative law judge, my job was several thousand times a year was to determine who's telling the truth and who isn't. Okay, so my little truth meter, boom. I knew that she wasn't telling the truth. I didn't think it was a big deal, though. Right. I didn't realize that there'd be, tremendous ramifications from that. But I did write it down in my little book. I keep my brains in my pocket, and I have a little book that I've kept for years. Every year I get a new one. And I wrote down exactly what she said. And, I didn't think it was any big deal. And then it blew up, and, that was what led to the crooked Hillary, that she was lying. et cetera. I shouldn't say, like, let other people draw the conclusions that they want. I don't want to accuse her of that.
Leon Panetta.
The facts.
Leon
Okay?
Panetta, Secretary of Defense.
I had no idea. Short little guy, but I could tell, and I had no idea who he was when he was walking through the room before. But I could tell this is a guy that's like got a lot of power.
Mm-hmm.
He looked like a little mafia guy. Is what he looked like.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what his background is in the military, but I actually don't have any recollection of what he said or anything. But I just looked at this. Who's this little short guy, and why is he here?
Right.
But I could tell that he exuded, "Don't mess with me."
Joe Biden was there too, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
What happened there?
Okay. He came by and he talked to us twice. Okay, the first time he tried to comfort, and I really appreciated that.
Mm-hmm.
He, said that, I lost a couple of family members, and it's really and he used a swear word, to lose a couple of family members, and that was it. That's the way he talks, and so that's fine. And that was it. Now afterwards, this was like say 10, 15 minutes afterwards, he came to me. And I told this to my family, but my wife says, "Hey, you don't really need to make this public. It kind of, it's so off color that you might not want to mention it." And I have. But
Mm-hmm.
What he said, and this was in a loud voice, so other people, including his security guys who were standing next to him, could hear. He yelled, and it sounded like he was in a bar and he's drunk. Is what it sounded like. Did your son always have balls the size of cue balls? I've never used that phrase in my life before. And I was taken back, but I wanted to take the higher ground.
Yeah, right.
I said very respectfully, that I was, always a very courageous person and always wanted to protect people. So that, and then what actually as soon as he said it, what went through my mind was that if something happens to number one, this guy is number two, and he's a clown. That really was what went through my mind. He's a clown, and he would be in charge of the most powerful country in the world. That was just what flashed through my mind.
And rightfully so.
Yeah.
There have been a number of things that have happened, Charles, that Benghazi is not going away.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, much to the deep state's chagrin.
Well, I think it's really important that it hasn't. Okay. And the reason that it's so important is for the protection of our democracy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
People vote. And if you have a small number of billionaires that control the news media, the entertainment, everything that people think, that small number of billionaires can also determine how those people are going to vote as well. So what's very important is that the facts come out. Mm-hmm. We need to have voters that know the true facts in order to protect the integrity of our government when they do vote. That's what's important about Benghazi as far as the welfare of our country is concerned.
And Benghazi was a huge wake-up call to millions of Americans.
Yes, it was.
In fact, Charles, to this day, people reach out to you in very different ways to let you know that they're, if you will, woke to what happened and who ultimately is responsible. There's a beautiful portrait of Ty behind you, but there's also a license plate. Educate our viewers on the license plate.
Okay, well, first of all, the oil portrait behind was given to me by the SEAL Museum. And it was done by a retired Navy SEAL who obviously is a very good artist when it comes to working in oil painting. Okay. As far as the license plate was concerned, one of my fishing buddies here in Hawaii, wonderful guy, very patriotic person as well. He was up in Alaska fishing, and someone who I have never met took that license plate off of his vehicle, gave it to my friend, and said, when you get back to Hawaii, give this to the father of Ty Woods. There are still many, many very patriotic Americans out there who honor Ty. And really, the best way that people can honor Ty is in whatever walk of life, that as a father, as a mother, as a worker on the job, be a hero, give your best. And if he could inspire people to be the same kind of forceful hero, brave hero in whatever they do, I know that Ty would want that to be his legacy.
And there you were driving down the road in the Midwest, I believe, right?
A rural part of the mainland, yes.
Yeah. And just another extension of how Benghazi continues to roll forward to make our country better. There's a book that's going to be coming out.
Yes.
And the book is going to be written and contributed to by the whistleblowers,
Yes.
some generals, I believe, yourself. And there you were driving down the road, Charles, and what happened?
Okay, I was driving down the road in this rural area, and I passed a farmhouse. And here was an 8-foot by 4-foot sign that said, Benghazi Betrayal. So, of course, I turned around, went in the driveway, talked to this very patriotic ex-military person. And that's where we got the title for the book, Benghazi Betrayal. Those 2 words say it all.
It really does.
Mm-hmm.
It really does, Charles.
And it's, I don't know, it's wonderful to see this. When there's a cover-up, there's a couple of ways that you instigate a cover-up. One is by misinformation. Okay, Susan is obviously misinformation. Statement that I just read here, U.S. forces could not arrive in time, misinformation. A lot of misinformation. Okay, people were able to see through that. Okay, so that actually backfired on them. And the other way is just with the passage of time. That's a great way to do a cover-up. Okay, what's happened on this? What happened is just a little snowball. By the time the 2016 elections came around 4 years later, that snowball had become an avalanche. And people hadn't forgotten. And the cover-up was not successful. In fact, it gained momentum, gained facts, and that may have been by one of the perpetrators of Benghazi, you know who I mean, Mrs. Clinton, did not achieve her lifelong goal.
Charles, have you been contacted by anybody in Washington, Congress, the House, the Senate, and said, look, Charles, we're not letting this go. We're gonna keep pushing until you and the rest of the families get answers, official answers?
No, not specifically like that. The one person that I really have so much admiration for was Congressman Jason Chaffetz. After the movie, I guess I'm not supposed to say what the title was. It actually is after the Tig and the rest of them who were with Ty on the roof, after they were interviewed on Hannity. Immediately, I got a phone call from Congressman Chaffetz, and he says, I just watched the whistleblowers, or I'm sorry, not the whistleblowers, the contractors that were with your son when he died on the roof. He says, I know that you were watching what they said as well. And he says, I just wanted to call and give my condolences. That's about the best that's happened so far. But as far as the promises, no, that hasn't happened. But, good things have happened as a result of this, and I'm satisfied with that.
Charles, if I spoke to you 2 years ago about this and asked you the question, do you believe the people who looked the other way, let's say, be diplomatic, looked the other way, and ended up being responsible for what happened in Benghazi. If I asked you 2 years ago, do you believe they'd be held accountable down the line? What would have been your answer 2 years ago?
Okay, let me back up. Okay, as you know, I have a faith in God, and God's very active. I don't push that on people. But when I wasn't even in kindergarten, I didn't even know how to read yet. But there was this old lady that my mom took care of, and I can remember from an early age exactly the verse that she quoted. This is the first Bible verse I ever memorized. Judgment is mine, saith the Lord. I shall repay. I 100% believe that. I believed it when I was 3 or 4 years old. I can't remember anything else that Mrs. Davis had ever said. One sentence I can remember all my life, and I believe it. Judgment is mine, saith the Lord. I shall repay. God's real, and he balances the scales. And I don't think he's finished balancing the scales yet.
Neither do I.
And you know what I would really like to see happen as a result of this? I would love to see Mrs. Clinton and Barack Obama in heaven. It would bring tears to my eyes. I would love to see them both there. And, obviously they'd have to change the direction of their lives, make public repentance and all that sort of stuff. But that's one of the good things I would love to see. I would love to see that. I would love to hug them in heaven.
You're an incredible man, Charles.
We have an incredible God.
Yeah. And you know what? Physically, Ty isn't around.
I think he knows what's happening down here.
But Ty is around. And will continue to be around. Because he always was about completing a mission. And that mission is getting even closer to being completed with every passing day. And Charles, it's because of you.
No, it's because of God.
Well,
and
it's a great tag team. God and Charles. I thank you, Charles.
Thank you, Dr. Janda.
For everything you have done, are doing, and will do. You are an incredible patriot, and our country is so much better for everything that you have done, and I thank you.
Thank you.
I thank you, folks, for joining us. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Be like Charles. And that guy standing right there, Ty. Dream big and dare to fail. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off.